Arch Advocate Podcast. No, I didn't shave for this episode. Welcome back, everybody. It's a brand new week. Joe Rogan is a liar. Andrea Ocasio-Cortez is a liar. Socialism always fails and leads to mass starvation. Also, Jordan B. Peterson, big fat liar. I'm going to get to all that, but first, going to read to you your daily devotional. Now listen, before I do, let me just qualify what I just said. Not qualified. Let me explain something here. I will not have this show turn into a gossip column. This isn't going to be a gossip show. I have to talk about what Joe Rogan did because it represents what is going on in our society as a whole. And what the Democrats and these communists that are trying to get into, Bernie Sanders' response to Donald Trump saying we will never be a socialist nation, he looked like he was about to start crying that the president of the United States would say such a thing. Did you see him like he was like tapping his mouth? Oh, that makes me so sad that the president said that. I don't want to name drop Bernie Sanders, but he represents a bigger picture. I don't want to name drop Joe Rogan and Tim Pool in this light, because if you've been listening to this show for like the last year, I'm a big fan of Tim Pool. I don't agree with a lot of his politics, but as a man, as a journalist, like his quest for the truth, like I'm on board. I don't want to name drop these people because then it's like gossip, and I don't want to do that. But I am going to talk about it, and I am going to use these people's names because if you've seen it, or if you haven't seen it, and you've been thinking like, well, maybe I should go find out for myself what happened. Understand that this is a societal problem, and it's like a pimple. You get a pimple. Remember when you were a teenager, or maybe still to this day, you get a pimple on your skin, right? And you touch it, and it kind of hurts, but all you can see is the little white head on top of it. Right? And you pop that zit and a whole bunch of stuff comes out. And all you could see before you popped it was that little tiny whitehead. Well, Joe Rogan is literally the whitehead. Yes, that is a play on words that was unintended, but now I think it's hilarious. He's the zit, right? The problem is underneath the surface. There's a bigger problem. And that's what we're going to talk about, the quest for truth. And the importance that you speak the truth when you speak. Anyways, I'm going to read to you your daily devotional. Devotional is a morning head check, if you will. There are many that you can buy. Probably the number one devotional book that you can buy is a book called My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers. Oddly enough, Oswald Chambers didn't actually write that book. His wife did. This book was written by Sarah Young, a longtime missionary. This is called Jesus Calling. It is a daily devotional that is written in the first person. This is for February 11th. And I read, my peace is like a golden light, like a shaft of golden light shining on you continuously. During days of bright sunshine, it may blend in with your surroundings. On darker days, my peace stands out in sharp contrast to your circumstances. See times of darkness as opportunities for my light to shine in transcendent splendor. I am training you to practice peace that overpowers darkness. Collaborate with me in this training. Do not grow weary. Do not lose heart. Look, it can wear you down. You can get tired, right? That's the significance of what, when we talk about staring into the abyss so long that the abyss begins to stare back at you, it starts to get into your soul. We have to be careful of that. Sometimes the darkness seems so overwhelming that it can't be beaten. Sometimes it seems that the darkness has become so powerful that it absorbs and takes over the light. But it's a mirage. It doesn't actually work that way. Light always conquers darkness. Now, when we look around, and this goes back to the last week Joe Rogan sat down with Jack Dorsey. You have to know this, that anytime a podcaster has a guest, it takes weeks, and if not weeks, months, to get somebody in a chair to sit down on either a phone call or an in-person thing. It's not like these people just call each other up and say, "Hey, bro, you want to come over tomorrow? Hey, Jack Dorsey, you billionaire who started Twitter and owns Twitter. You want to come over to my house, bro?" That's not how that works. Tim Pool was on. Tim Pool lives in New York City. Tim Pool, about a year ago, did actually it was maybe even longer than that. He did a video where he said Joe Rogan invited him on, and they scheduled an event where Tim Pool would be on the Joe Rogan podcast. And on the day of the show, Tim Pool bought a plane ticket. He flew to Los Angeles, paid all the money, and Joe Rogan flaked out on him and said, "Oh, sorry, bro, I can't meet with you." Like, there was a lot of money lost in that. And that, just big dick move. Dick move. Sorry for the language, kiddos. Dick move. Don't do that. But he did, and then Tim Pool made a video about it. Like, there's a lot of planning that goes into that. So Joe Rogan would have had at least weeks. You know what I mean? Like, Jack Dorsey's a busy guy. It would have taken weeks, if not months. Hey, come and sit down with us. And Joe Rogan, who is as famous as he is because he stood up against tyranny at one point. Carlos Mencia was the biggest earner in the comedy world at the time, right? Because Seinfeld was no longer on the air. Like, Carlos Mencia was the guy. He was making all the money. All the jobs were going to Carlos Mencia. And Carlos Mencia was going to comedy clubs and listening to new comics and just writing down their material. He was just stealing. And finally, Joe Rogan had had enough, and he stood up on stage, and he got in Carlos Mencia's face, and he said to everybody in the crowd, "This man is stealing material. He's stealing food out of the mouths of starving comics. Guys who are just trying to get their start, make a name for themselves, maybe make a couple of bucks, enough money to maybe pay their rent, and maybe have enough left over to buy a burrito. And he's stealing that from these people. This is a bad dude." And the Comedy Store kicked Joe Rogan out for years. But the respect went through the whole land of comedian land. Every comic heard about that. The Joe Rogan stood up and called him out for what he was doing, and that's how he got famous. He got famous and he got respect. And now we see so many years later, okay, listen, there's only two ways to look at Jack Dorsey. Right? If you're a bedwetting leftist, you think, okay, this guy, he is silencing the bad guys. We want the bad people to be silenced. That's one way to look at Jack Dorsey. The other way, for everybody else, the other way to look at it is, that man is silencing people. That we have in common. We have something in common with the leftists. Is we're both looking at Jack Dorsey saying that man is silencing people. But there's two ways to look at that. You can either look at that as a good thing, or if you're a normal person, you can look at that as a evil, demonic, satanic thing. Silencing people who have not broken law. We have laws about speech. If somebody goes on Twitter and calls for violence on a specific person or group of people, that is against our laws. And if people do that on Twitter, then Twitter would then have a legal responsibility to report that person to the authorities. Because we have laws about that. You're not allowed to do that. That does not fit within the confines of free speech. So we have leftists who look at Jack Dorsey and say, oh, he's silencing the Nazis. He's silencing the bad people. Ooh, Alex Jones, he's a bad people. Ooh, Laura Loomer, she's a bad people. The leftists see that Jack Dorsey is silencing people, and normal people, right, freedom-loving people look at Jack Dorsey also as if he's silencing people. And evidently, this did not occur to Joe Rogan. This didn't even cross his mind. Well, just listen to Joe Rogan himself. He'll tell you. He's done no less than 2 shows addressing the aftermath of what happened after the Jack Dorsey conversation. Because everybody was like, you're not going to ask him about that? You're not going to ask him about that. Everybody looks at Jack Dorsey the same way. He is silencing people. And you have no questions about that? You're the one who called out Carlos Mencia for stealing food out of starving artists' mouths. But you have nothing to say about this. You're the one who's always telling people like, yeah, you hunt. You're a hunter. And screw all these vegans who talk trash about hunters. Screw all those people. Like, you know enough to know, like, hey man, you know, this is, yeah, there's commercial meat, right, where they just put a bunch of cows and they're horribly treated their whole lives, and then they kill them, and then that's what you eat, that's what you buy at the grocery store. And then there's going out and killing your own animal and facing the reality of where meat comes from. And you stand up for that. But you have nothing to say. I don't care if you agree with Jack Dorsey. I don't care if you think, you know, Alex Jones is worthy of being silenced. I don't care if that's what you think. To each his own, man. But you don't have it. You're not going to press the issue and find out, like, well, wait a minute. Why did you do this for this guy and you didn't do it for that lady? Why is it that you have Antifa, a group of people who are terrorists? You just let them, they're just free-range terrorists. And yet Alex Jones is the big problem? Laura Loomer's the big problem? You don't have any questions about that? And then you have to do 2 shows. And then you have to bring on Tim Pool, a leftist, by the way. Right? Sorry. He's not a leftist. He's a liberal. He's a far left liberal. Good dude. Good dude. Like, I appreciate most of his takes. Not all of them, but most of his takes is like, he's like, yeah, I wish people didn't say horrible things, but I certainly don't want their ability taken away to say it. You know, Richard Spencer, who is a piece of garbage, has the right to say whatever he says. And if he ever stands up and says, hey, we need to start killing black people, okay, well, that's against the law. That's against the law. And it's been against the law like the whole time as far as I know. But he doesn't do that. He just stands up there and says, yeah, I'm a white globalist and I think only white people should run the globe. It's like, okay, that's pretty offensive, but, you know, it's free speech, man. You know, say whatever you want. That's what Tim Pool says. I mean, not in those words, but, you know, yeah, I think you get what I'm getting at. And what does Joe Rogan do? Where's the lie? This is what I want you to see, the lie. Hold on, I'm going to take a drink of coffee here. The lie is when he gets on in front of his audience, which is millions of people, and he says, oh, I didn't know that that's what people wanted to hear. I mean, I just was thinking, like, well, you know, he's the owner of a very successful business. I just want to find out what makes him tick. Oh, okay. So if you had what's that lady comedian that was holding up the beheaded Donald Trump head? What's that lady's name? The D-list lady. Whatever. It's like if you had Kathy Griffin. So if you had Kathy Griffin on, you would just be talking to her about comedy and what makes her comedic clock tick. You wouldn't bring up the fact that she had pictures of herself taken in a photo shoot holding the severed head of the President of the United States. You just wouldn't bring that up. And you would come back on the next day and say, oh, I didn't even know. I really didn't even think about it. I just, she's a very famous comedian, and I'm a comedian, and I just wanted to find out what makes her tick. Man. I know that wouldn't happen, because when you had Roseanne Barr on, the topic of that entire podcast was the tweets about that lady that may or may not be a black lady. That was the entire... Roseanne Barr is the most famous female comedian who ever lived. And quite possibly, she might be the most famous comedian, period. Well, maybe not famous, but yeah, famous, right? Because I think her show may have been more successful than Seinfeld, right? She's certainly the wealthiest female comedian who ever lived, maybe the most famous. And there wasn't hardly any questions about her, comedic clock ticking. It was just, hey, what about this thing when you said something that a lot of people thought was racist? That was the whole conversation with, Roseanne Barr, the most famous female comedian, comes on your show, and all you talk about is Twitter. Nothing for Jack Dorsey, though. Oh, I guess I just didn't know, and I really just wanted to find out what makes this guy tick. You're a liar. And the fact, listen, I've said it before, I've said it many more times, the cover-up is always worse than the crime. The cover-up is always worse than the crime. Joe Rogan just come out and say, listen, Twitter pays me a lot of money. I get a lot of money from these people, and you know what? I just didn't want to piss them off. And now I realize that was a cowardly position to take, that I sold my soul for money. And you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. Hey, Jack Dorsey, you want to come back on the show? I've got some hard questions for you. The door's always open, buddy. You know what? I really let my society down by not asking you the hard questions. You went on TV and said that you wanted to put Alex Jones in a timeout like a parent. You who are a sodomite. You have no children because you like buttholes of dudes. And now you want to act like a parent? What are you... and by the way, Jack Dorsey, are you on medication? Because your face is the face of somebody who is on constant medication. You have a dead look on your face. That can only be achieved through medication. That particular look on Jack Dorsey's face, that is a medicated face. What medications are you on, and why are you on them? Why are you so power hungry? Why is it that you allow terrorists, ISIS and the Taliban and these kind of people, why do you let them keep their verified pages? Why did you take Milo Yiannopoulos' blue check mark away and not his Twitter page? Why did you choose to do that? Oh, those decisions were made by other people. Oh, no, they weren't, Jack. You know damn well who Milo Yiannopoulos is. You know damn well that you got a phone call or somebody came into your office and said, what do we do about this Milo guy? We do this, the whole world's going to see it. What should we do? Because if you answer and say, well, those decisions were made by, people that I have delegated authority to, then you yourself are saying that you are not in control of your company. If that were true, then you would have shut down the current president of the United States. You are saying the very same people that took away Milo Yiannopoulos, who, by the way, I don't really like. I mean, he's clever and funny, but I don't want that guy speaking for me. You're saying that your underlings, people that you pay money so that you don't have to think about what those people think about, they decided that they wanted to take away Milo Yiannopoulos' blue check mark so that other people could open up mirror accounts and pretend to be Milo, and that you didn't know about that. Those same people have failed to take away your biggest enemy, the President of the United States. Your biggest foe is Donald J. Trump, and yet these same people that you delegated that authority to, they didn't take away Donald Trump's? No, Why? Well, that's because they came and talked to you about it and said, hey, what do you think about, what if we shut down the President of the United States? And then you realized that your power only extends so far. And that if you did that, oh boy, there'd be a riot in San Francisco, in Silicon Valley. There'd be a riot on your front door. You'd be dragged out into the streets, and so you put yourself in check. You checked yourself. And Joe Rogan has, what is his answer to all of this? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I just wanted to know what made the man tick. Well, then why have you put so much effort into trying to appease your audience? It's a lie. And you have to see, again, like, I don't want this show to be a gossip show about Joe Rogan. He's just another pawn. There is a problem that goes on. And this is it's when people don't want to own their own mess. And this ties directly in to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Owning your own stuff. If you're a mess, own it. If you tell a lie, then confess it. If you steal something, confess it. But when you start doubling down, this is the problem. And this is where it leads. And it always leads to this. So, I don't know, a little over 2 years ago, all of a sudden everything was racist. Statues are racist, and all white people are racist, and all the people that voted for Donald Trump instead of voting for Barack Obama for a third term, right? If you didn't vote for a black guy, then you're a racist. If you didn't vote for a woman who passes out and gets caught lying all the time, then you're a racist somehow. Everyone's a racist, and everything is racist, and America is racist, 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 racist. Remember that? And everybody said, no, okay, you people are crazy. You people are absolutely crazy. We're not doing that. And instead of the leaders in academia and the leaders in our Congress and in our Senate coming out and saying, listen, all this nonsense has to stop, they doubled down. And what did they get for it? Well, now there's a whole bunch of pictures from the 80s emerging from these governors and lieutenant governors and these high-profile Democrats wearing black faces and wearing Ku Klux Klan outfits and all this sort of thing. It's like, there you have it. Now you've been exposed. Now the very thing that you were trying to cover is being exposed. And the cover-up is always worse than the crime. That dude in Virginia, who was in the blackface, the way that he won the governor's race in the state of Virginia was he made that commercial saying that if the other guy gets voted for, there's going to be lynchings of black people and Muslims in the streets because he's a racist. It always leads to this. These people are currently right now, 10 years ago they were saying we need to let gay people get married because they're just like everybody else. Now what are they saying? Children can be sexualized if they want to be, if they enjoy dressing up like women and pretending to be women. Then it's okay to sexualize them. That's where allowing the lie to continue gets all of us. That's where we're at, people. For years they said, listen, we just need to have abortions because sometimes, listen, I had a classmate, excuse me, I had a classmate in high school, and I can't remember her name. I want to say, oh hell, I don't remember. But she was born with diabetes, right? She wasn't like a fat kid. She was born with diabetes. So she had like one of, because there's different levels of diabetes, and she had like the worst one. And I didn't know this, but diabetes can kill pregnant women. If you have the really bad diabetes, carrying a baby to full term can cause you to die. I don't really know the details of that, but I remember in high school she got pregnant by my buddy Jason. And she was talking with, and this was at a private Christian school, by the way. She was telling all of us, she was like, listen, I have diabetes, and this baby can kill me, but I am going to carry this baby to full term. And I will risk my life for this baby. Now, we've been told since 1973 that this whole argument about abortion is about women's safety. This is about, well, what if that baby can kill you? And that's a hell of an argument, isn't it? Yeah. What if that baby can kill you? That's a hell of an argument, because for somebody like me, that shuts my mouth, because it's like, whoa. Your instinct to preserve your own life is a hell of an instinct. It's a very powerful. It is probably the second most powerful instinct that you have, or third. Very powerful instinct. So put me in that same situation, man, I don't know. I do not know. But I do remember what she chose, and she chose to face death, look death square in the eye. So I have that anecdote in my pocket at all times. You want to talk about killing your baby? Well, I knew a high school girl who faced death, and guess what? She was fine. The baby's fine. Everything was fine. That baby is 26, 20, that baby's 28 now. That's weird. Wow, I'm old. I'm going to be 50 in 4 years. Isn't that weird? That's so weird. Anyways, where was I? So, do you understand, like, this is the progression when you let the lie continue? Where are we now? We're in a climate where people that are sick and tired of hundreds of millions of dollars going to Planned Parenthood, and Planned Parenthood being found out time and time and time again to be selling baby parts for profit. And finally Texas comes out and says, all right, enough. No more taxpayer dollars for you. This is satanic, what you're doing. No more tax. We're not paying for your Satanism anymore. You filthy murderers. And the retaliation. New York came in to retaliate. He said, oh, you want to fire upon us? We will fire right back from now on. As long as that baby has not drawn its first breath, you can kill it whenever you want. 9 months. Right? 40 weeks. 40 weeks is a full-term pregnancy. On week 39 and 6 days, if you want to cut that baby into pieces inside of your womb, you go right on ahead. And we're going to light up the city and celebrate this momentous occasion. We're all going to stand up and laugh. You can go back and watch the footage. Why would you be laughing about that? What's funny about the need for surgery? If that's what you're truly saying, like this is about women's health. Sometimes people need surgery for their health. Is something funny to you about surgery? I've had surgery. Nothing funny about it. Why are you laughing? This is where we're at. And these people like Joe Rogan, like Sam Harris, like Jordan B. Peterson, who stands up in front of a soyed out, emasculated generation of men who've been abandoned by their father and they need a father figure. Jordan B. Peterson stands up and says, oh, you should read the Bible. What a controversial thought that is, isn't it? As much as Christianity is hated these days, you should study Christianity, but don't believe that any of it's real. It's all a metaphor, just like Pinocchio. How many times have you seen Jordan B. Peterson equate the Bible to Pinocchio? You're going to save your father from the whale. It's like, hey, Jordan, like, in this case, I think you're the father. We need to save you because you're in the belly of the beast now. And you're hanging out with sodomites and nihilists. Sam Harris is a nihilist, however it is that you want to pronounce it. That's what Sam Harris is. He's a nihilist. There's nothing for Sam Harris. There's nothing that makes any sense. It's all just been predetermined, man. It's all genetic, because you can see in genetics, it's all predetermined. There is no free will, because I looked at two atoms, and everything that the scientific community says is about to happen, it did happen, and therefore it must happen, because it's all predetermined. So free will certainly can't exist in human beings. Then why don't you jump off of a cliff, Sam? Because this life is nothing but pain. There's nothing but pain in your future. And you're going to die shitting your pants being surrounded by strangers. You're going to die painfully just like everybody else. Everybody is going, when you die, it's painful, very uncomfortable, very embarrassing. Because when you die, all of your organs, you know what I mean? They don't all fail at once, unless you're really lucky. My mom had a friend, a girlfriend from high school or something like that, and her husband was like this successful businessman. He was in incredible shape. He was one of those dudes that like ran like 2 marathons a year. You know what I mean? Like he was like a older guy in his 40s, and he was in real good shape. And one day he was out on the golf course, because that's what rich people who are in really good shape do. And bam, massive heart attack. Died right where he stood. He was dead before he hit the grass. That's the way you want to go, man. But that's not normal. Normal is laying in a bed, pissing and shitting all over yourself in pain, while people that you don't know wipe your ass for you. The shame and the humiliation of having strangers touching your parts, wiping the poop off of your butt. These are strangers. That's how most people die. Why would you go, if there is no free will, if there's nothing on the other side, if there is no consequences for killing yourself, why on earth would you continue to live? There's nothing but trauma and failure and shame and humiliation in everybody's future. Life is hard, man. Why would you continue to live if everything's predetermined and there's nothing on the other side? There is no God. There's no nothing. There's no consequences for anything. Then why would you voluntarily continue on in this mess? This awful, torturous existence. For crying out loud, Sam, you live in Los Angeles. Every single day you are stuck in Los Angeles traffic. That is... Why would you continue on in that, breathing in that filth, living in a city of violence that doesn't have its own water supply? Which, by the way, here's another thing, the lie. The lie of liberalism. Free stuff, everybody. We're just going to tax the piss out of people. Nobody is more taxed in America than Californians. And I know because I've lived there. Everything is taxed. The gas tax, the plastic cup tax. They tried taxing water at restaurants. Like they tried making it so that, and it worked for a little while, but what they said was, okay, we have a water crisis. So in restaurants, restaurants can't give you water unless you ask for it. No more free water for people, everybody. That's a thing that happened, and the restaurant owners were like, okay, whatever. Are you going to send agents to I'm serving water. Everybody wants water. I'm not going to make my clients ask for water. I'm just going to give it to them. It's like going to Olive Garden and asking for breadsticks. Of course I want the breadsticks. They tax everything. That's why so many people are moving away from California. They're like, I just can't keep up. Now you're talking about taxing the air. They're literally talking about taxing the air that you breathe. Because they've ran out of things to tax. There's just no more room for anything. Tax people, man. We got to tax people, man. You want to see real racism, go to California. In the neighborhood, like in my neighborhood where I grew up, there was a certain rich part of my neighborhood called Granite Hills. Beautiful area. And the elementary, middle school, and high school that I attended partially in high school, all three of those schools were right next to each other in Granite Hills. So one day I was in my early 20s, and I'm driving through Granite Hills, and I'm driving past my old school, right? And it was like a Saturday or Sunday, and there was all these families out playing softball and whatnot, for the kids, like, Little League baseball and softball and whatnot. So there was hundreds of parents with their kids. And this is in a very white neighborhood, an affluent neighborhood. Not everybody's white. In that neighborhood, there's a lot of wealthy Mexican people and a lot of wealthy black people. There's a lot of wealthy people, but just like everything else in America, the majority is white. And there were, because of the sort of neighborhood there's still a lot of dirt roads and country-esque things and wooden fences, and it's pretty. It's still very Norman Rockwell-y, if you will. And so all these parents were parked on, the cars were parked on the dirt on the side of the road. And there was like 10 cop cars and 20 cops just walking down the road, giving everybody a ticket for being illegally parked. Right? You want to see real racism. Why weren't those cops downtown San Diego where the drugs and the violence are? I'll tell you why. Because there's no money in criminals. There's only money in white people and black people and Mexican people who actually work for a living. They pay their bills. You give them a ticket and they will pay it. You go down and start writing tickets in the hood, nobody's going to pay those tickets. There's no money in poor people. You want to see true racism. You know what I mean? Where was I going with that? Oh, as I was saying, like the consequence of liberalism, when people are calling out and saying, no, you cannot tax people into prosperity. You cannot tax people and hope that your businesses continue to grow exponentially. It cannot be done. And there are laws of economics that explain why this works this way. And yet you disregard them and say, oh, no. We're here to help people. We're going to help all the poor people. Oh, there's poor people in Mexico. Let's help them too. Just bring them all here. We'll just keep taxing the people who go to work until they're dead. Until the only people that are left are poor people. You understand? When a business moves out of California, it's the same thing as dying. That spirit, if you will, or that entity, that business is no longer in your land. As far as you know, the guy died. He didn't. He moved to Texas. He moved to South Dakota. He moved to Wyoming. But as far as you're concerned, he's dead. Now you don't have that revenue anymore. And what was the thing that people were predicting 20 years ago? This was 20 years ago. People were saying, listen, California, all right, if you keep this up, if you keep encouraging people, poor people, to come to your state for the free stuff, the poor people are going to come together, and they're just going to be poor together. And all the drug addicts and all the drunks and all the mentally ill people, they're all going to meet up because of some other laws of social dynamics. And they did. They came together in Los Angeles. Over 50,000 homeless people in one neighborhood in Los Angeles. And what were they saying? Because of how this works, you are going to be met by the plagues. Biblical plagues is what scientists were telling the Democrats. Like, you are inviting the wrath of God into your land. And they said, oh, no. We have science for that. We have shots that we can give to people. We have ruled out God. There's no plagues anymore, man. Don't you know we have shots? And guess what? God brought back an old classic. TYPHUS. Let me repeat that for you. Typhus, which hasn't been in our land for since the 1800s, I think. Maybe the early 10s and 20s. Typhus. There is a plague in Los Angeles right now. That news has just been released, just like a week or 2 weeks ago. There's typhus in America, in Los Angeles. Let me explain something. Let me break this down for you. America is the wealthiest nation ever in the history of the world. The stretch of land between the border wall of San Diego and like the northern part of San Luis Obispo County, so the San Diego County, Orange County, Los Angeles County, Ventura County, and then San Luis Obispo County. They're all next to each other. So from San Diego to San Luis Obispo, that is the wealthiest part of America. So in the wealthiest land in America, and in the wealthiest spot of the wealthiest land in America, there is now typhus. Thanks, Democrats. This is what happens when we allow lies to continue without confronting it. And saying, no, people who are transvestites kill themselves at an over 40%. That's 4 out of 10 transvestites are going to kill themselves. That is unacceptable. But no, we celebrate and say, oh, we just need to be more accepting of these people. No, they're going to kill themselves. People said, oh no, we need to let gay people get married because they're just like us. And we said, no, we can't let this happen. We can't normalize this, because if we allow them to get married, and if we allow them to adopt children, then they will have a say in our school board meetings, in our parent-teachers associations. And these people are not natural-born parents. They're not equal to us. And if we let them into our schools and have sway in our schools, they're going to try to start indoctrinating our children. And they said, no, you're being paranoid. You're being paranoid, man. These are just normal people just trying to live out their lives. And what do we see now? They're teaching gay lifestyles to elementary kids. No problem there. They're teaching homosexuality in sexual education to elementary kids. A job, by the way, which sex education, that is the parent's job. Mother and father, that's the parent's job. If I find anybody talking to my kid about sex, they're going to die. You try to talk to my kid. If you're a stranger, if I don't know you, and if I have not requested that you explain something about human sexuality to my kid and you just do it willy-nilly, that will be a sexual assault on my child, and I will remedy that situation. And it's happening because we let it. Because we became a people who allowed things to happen because it was like, well, it's on TV, so it's not really real. We did the Joe Rogan where it's like, oh, I just wanted to know what made the guy tick, man. It's not really my fault. It's like, no, you knew what you were doing. You were taking that sweet money. You were taking the path of least resistance. You want to keep that Soros money coming in. I know we all want it. We all want to drive a Lamborghini and drive our yacht to work and and go to work in a helicopter. We all want to be filthy rich. Everybody does. Poor people and rich people alike. Rich people still want more. If you have a helicopter, then if you're rich enough to own a $5 million helicopter, then the next thing you're going to want is a $300 million Boeing private jet. A 747. And if you have that, then the next thing you're going to want is a space shuttle so you can go into outer space. There's no end. You think that there's some contentment that people like Joe Rogan have and Jack Dorsey, you think there's some sort of plateau where they just cease to want more? They have the same drive as you. Joe Rogan did what he did for money, and for security and for, social acceptance. He wants to be accepted by the Jack Dorseys and the George Soroses of this world, and the Clintons and the Obamas. He wants their acceptance because he thinks that those people are powerful and that they can give him power. And that's why he condones pedophilia, and he condones homosexuals coming into your classroom where your children, where your innocent child is sitting, and having them indoctrinate those children. He wants that because he believes that those people are more powerful than you. Quite the opposite is true. We must not allow ourselves to be like that. We must not allow ourselves to even take the route of Jordan B. Peterson, where it's like that mealy-mouthed half-truth. That's the worst kind of truth. The more truth that a lie has in it, the more dangerous it becomes. Here's Jordan B. Peterson. I would prefer listening to Richard Dawkins. I would prefer to listen to him because Richard Dawkins is never going to come out and say like, oh yes, you should read the gospel of Jesus Christ, man. There's a lot of really good stuff about how to live your life in there. He's never going to say that. Ricky Gervais and Bill Maher and those people, they're all pedophiles. Allegedly. All those people, they're on board with the lie, with the Jack Dorsey and the globalism and the pedophilia and the it's okay that 40% of this one subgroup of people are killing themselves. Those are those people. And the more truth one of those lies has in it, the more dangerous it becomes. Here's Jordan B. Peterson who comes along and he says, listen, man, our entire society was built on Christianity. Don't be ashamed of it. And everybody's like, oh yeah, I don't want to be ashamed of Christianity. I grew up going to Sunday school and I enjoyed it. My parents used to read the Bible to me. I loved that. They used to pray with me. I used to love that. My grandparents used to pray for me all the time. Thank God, here's Jordan B. Peterson who comes along and he says, listen, don't be ashamed of it. The thing that saved the world, the thing that has been lifting the world out of poverty for the last 40 years has been the net result of 2,000 years of Christianity. Don't be ashamed of it. By the way, it's all false. It's just a big metaphor. You might as well be reading Pinocchio. Bam! That's the dangerous lie. And you go on to Jordan B. Peterson's Reddit, you go on to the subgroups on Facebook, little Jordan B. Peterson subgroups, and you read those comments, and you look at the kind of people that are following Jordan B. Peterson. They're all globalists. They're all like the worst people. Because, that's where we're at now, is that people don't have the ability to spot the lie anymore. And it's easy. If it's weak, then just call it weak. Hey, Joe Rogan, all right, you screwed up. All right? You wanted that sweet Twitter money. You wanted to keep the Soroses happy and the Clintons and the Obamas, and so you sold your soul for money. I've done the same thing. I mean, not to that level and not with those people, but I've made decisions about, sacrificing my own morality for money. I've done it too. I know exactly what it feels like. It feels awful. It feels dirty. And you know how I come clean? You know how I get clean? I confess it. I confess it. And just say, look, man, I became so infatuated with money that I used to, as a commodity trader, I used to rejoice when horrible things would happen to people because I made money on it, a lot of money. I used to rejoice. Till finally I saw what I was doing. I saw what kind of man I became. And I said, okay, no more. I repent. I repent of this. This is evil. This is satanic, and I renounce it. And I confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, and I will follow him. Joe Rogan will have Jordan B. Peterson on his show, and he'll say, oh, that's so fascinating, man. Your take on Christianity, I never really thought it was. Oh, man, that's beautiful. And the minute somebody else comes on and says, those Christians, what a bunch of retards, they'll be like, yeah, those guys are retards. Pick a lane, Joe Rogan, you weakling. I don't care if you're a ninja, you're weak. Your mind is weak. You say, and then he does this, well, I never pretended to be smart. There's a lot of strong people with low IQs. There's people that have very low IQs and all they have in life is that they're nice to people and they've got a solid work ethic. And those people can go on to be millionaires. Oh, I have a very low IQ, and that's the devil dance. Oh, don't blame me. I never said I was smart. You're smart enough to get that Jack Dorsey money, aren't you? Jordan B. Peterson, you're smart enough to make yourself look like you're the standard. You're the savior of free speech, and that you're the man who stood up against the leftists. And yet, again, there's a lot of truth in that, and that's what makes it dangerous. It's the rope-a-dope. It's the, I'm going to show you my left, and then I'm going to clean you out with my right. It's the rope-a-dope. Jordan B. Peterson stands up against, Bill C-16, I think it was. And then there's all that footage of him standing against the Antifa people, and all the times that the Antifa people terrorized him. And then he comes out and he says, yeah, Christianity, man, it saved the world. It completely changed the world. And all those things are full of truth. And just at the end, then he comes out and says at the very end, you don't have to believe it literally. It's all just a big metaphor, man. There is no God. Well, what do you mean by God? That was a terrible Jordan B. Peterson. Well, what do you mean? I don't think I have a Jordan B. Peterson what do you call it? Mimic. Well, what do you mean by God? Well, I suppose it means, what do you mean by God? The lie. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. We're surrounded by liars now. Liars who 1 minute are wearing blackface and condemning Brett Kavanaugh for his yearbook, something written in his yearbook 30 years ago, and the next minute standing up for a guy whose literal thing in his yearbook was a photograph, not some weird cryptic note from his buddy who was also 17 years old at the time. Not that, but an actual photograph of him when he was in medical school. So he's a full adult at this point in his life. And the left, crickets. Crickets. Nothing. You have nothing to say about this. You were condemning the Covington kids just 2 weeks ago. And, and then you come out and apologize and say, oh, we shouldn't have condemned these kids. And as soon as you're done apologizing, you go back to condemning those same kids, even though even more footage has emerged that speaks on the behalf of those boys. The lie, man, don't get caught up in it. Speak the truth. If you screw up, just say that you screwed up. If you took the wrong path in your life, just confess it. Repent. This is the good news. This is the gospel of Jesus Christ. Repent. Because the kingdom of heaven is within your reach. It's always within your reach. Just turn around. There will be none of that for a great many people. If you want to support the Arch Advocate podcast, keep it going. Support the things you love, people. You can do that on PayPal at paypal.me/archadvocate. I need a proper chair to sit in. I need a microphone. I need soundproofing for my walls. I need that sweet Google money, yo. Anybody got George Soros' phone number? Just kidding. PayPal.me/archadvocate. Support the show. Hope you liked it. And we will talk to you tomorrow.